Gaming is culture.
You fucking whiny whore.
Gaming.
Alright, we'll watch these real quick.
Hello, it's One Take Schreier, and the outrage merchants are at it. Again, today's claim is that the
Oh my god, they're like totally claiming.
allegations of sexual harassment at Blizzard are false, and that somehow I made them all.
You did make them all up. What came of it criminally? You accused people of a crime. What people have been convicted of these crimes?
Up. If you're lucky enough to not be familiar with this world, there are a number of culture warriors out there who tweet all day about various agreements, whether or not they are true.
Yes, he's a gay Jew.
In an attempt to elicit intense emotional reactions from their viewers. These people aren't reporters. They don't actually talk to anyone involved or ask questions. They just kind of tweet and post videos, but they do have reach and sometimes bring in large audiences. This is part of a whole ecosystem that just rewards and leads to people getting paid for spreading misinformation on the internet. And normally I just kind of ignore this part of the internet, like in the same way that you would ignore someone in Times Square screaming that the world is coming to an end because of gays in the military. But actually today I did want to address it because I think this is a good opportunity to talk about a very serious, very important issue and try to explain it in a way that captures the nuances and complexities of it all. And unlike those squealing cretins, I actually spend most of my time as a reporter on the phone. Well, I spend all day on the phone with people who are involved in these stories, asking them questions, trying to corroborate their accounts with other people so I can piece together what actually happened. And so today's video that I'm going to talk about is based on two main sources. One is an article that I published in Bloomberg in August 2021 that I'll link in the show notes. And the other is my book, Play Nice, about the history of Blizzard, published in October of 2024. Fun fact, the same outrage merchants who are now claiming that I destroyed Blizzard by making up sexual harassment claims have actually spent the last 5 years or so claiming that I kept quiet about sexual harassment claims, just to kind of give you a look at the type of
Yep, and guess who was consistent from the start? It wasn't Smash JQ. It wasn't the Quarter Planet. It wasn't any of these other so-called anti-woke types. It was little old me who said it was a big fat nothing. It was all a bunch of bullshit and backstabbing bitches making shit up. They probably had sex with their boss and then regretted it later. They were pissed off that they didn't get promoted, so they made up stories. And guess how many people have been convicted of a crime since all these allegations came to light? Guess how many lawsuits have resulted in Blizzard having to pay out all this money that they were being sued for? Oh, that's right. A grand total of 0. Brutal, man. Who could have guessed? Dreamcast guy ripped his shirt for absolutely fuck all.
intellect that we're dealing with here. But let's zoom out, because I do think this is really worth talking about. So in 2021, July of 2021, the California government sued Activision Blizzard for sexual harassment and misconduct. It was a big, explosive lawsuit. A lot of the claims, most of the claims really focused on Blizzard, the maker of Warcraft and Overwatch and Diablo and StarCraft. This lawsuit included a lot of salacious details, some of which I subsequently reported were false, but we'll get to that. And it led to these massive effects for Blizzard and Activision as a whole. It led to protests and walkouts, eventually the sale of Activision Blizzard to Microsoft. One thing, by the way, I won't be talking about is the allegation in the lawsuit that a woman committed suicide as a result of harassment against her, because it is very complicated, very tricky. It involves Activision, not Blizzard. It was a woman within Activision, not within Blizzard Entertainment. And there's been a lot of kind of details surrounding that story that are very hazy and hard to prove. It's very difficult to prove why someone killed themselves or to be able to say that definitively. Her parents, the parents of the woman who killed herself, actually filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Activision Blizzard and then took it back, withdrew it. It's really messy.
Aww, you mean like everyone else?
It's not something I'm going to get into because I don't have all of the facts surrounding it, because in that case, I wasn't able to talk to the victim involved because unfortunately she has passed away. She has died by suicide. I'm going to focus on the stuff that I can prove and corroborate and the people that I've actually talked to. So, okay, 2 years after this lawsuit started, but that Activision Blizzard had become part of Microsoft, in December of 2023, California and Activision settled for $54 million. This was after the Microsoft deal had closed, so no longer run by the same people, different kind of entity, and that settlement was likely a whole part of that. Many of the women who worked for Activision Blizzard at various and during time periods that were kind of included in the lawsuit got checks as a result of that, sometimes significant checks in the 5 figures. And the language of the settlement, including the following, I'm going to read this entire thing. Quote, no court or any independent investigation has substantiated any allegations that there has been systemic or widespread sexual harassment at Activision Blizzard, that Activision Blizzard senior executives ignored, condoned, or tolerated a culture of systemic harassment, retaliation, or discrimination, or that Activision Blizzard's board of directors, including its chief executive officer, Robert Kotick, acted improperly with regard to the handling of any instances of workplace misconduct. So that language is at the core of this week's outrage merchant argument that the whole thing was bullshit. This happened 3 years ago, but I guess the culture warriors only discovered it now, which again shows you the kind of intellect we're dealing with here. But like, I'm not going to talk about them anymore. I'm going to talk about the truth of what actually happened at Blizzard, because despite the language in this settlement, there were a lot of women who spoke out about their experiences, and I can share some of their stories. So first of all, by the way, there were actually...
Because there's no more trustworthy a source than women who got fired or who broke up with their boyfriend, because women never make shit up to get back at people.
2 lawsuits, a state lawsuit and a federal lawsuit, and this settlement was only for one of them. The state one, the federal lawsuit, was settled for $18 million and did not have...
I don't think Jason Schreier's actually gay, ironically enough. He's just Jewish. Very, very Jewish.
language, did not say anything like that, like the California did. There's actually one of the reasons this is so also messy is that the state investigators and federal investigators got into political squabbles, and there's a whole lot of details involving Gavin Newsom and accusations about him interfering in this that I'm not going to get into here. But if you're interested in the legal drama, there's a little bit more there that you can find online.
He's a massive cock gobbling leftist, though, regardless.
And here and there, and parts of that have still not been quite told. That story still isn't 100% clear of how all that went down, but I think that might help explain why there's still a couple of questions surrounding the lawsuits of it all. But let's put that aside. Let's look at all the actual facts. And I think one thing that's really important here, if you
Dude, I'm sorry, but if you hang your fucking college degree on your wall as like some sort of flex, that's like so gay, bro. That's so fucking... I don't even know where the fuck my degrees are. Who cares? Like, oh, I gotta remind myself that I have a master's degree. It's like nobody fucking cares, bro. Put that shit in the attic or something. Poor choice of words.
My other videos, you know this, but oftentimes when you try to reduce a story to a binary of like, is it true, is it not true, especially a story that's as complicated as allegations of widespread harassment and a culture of misconduct and sexual discrimination, that really does a disservice to a reality. Reality is more nuanced and more complicated than that, because actually two things in this case are simultaneously true. One is that the California lawsuit was misleading and full of inaccuracies. You can write anything in a lawsuit here in the United States, and that one had a lot of things wrong. The other thing that's true is that many of the women who have worked for Blizzard over the last few decades have felt mistreated by the company. And I think that it's important to note that harassment is one thing. I think any company that reaches a certain size that gets into the thousands or tens of thousands is going to have incidents of harassment. It's really how the company chooses to deal with that harassment and the harassers themselves that creates a culture. So back in 2021, California lawsuit dropped. I did what any reporter would do. I started making phone calls. Before this, I heard a few details, a few anecdotes here and there, but not enough to actually be able to publish a substantial story, which one day down the road, I'll do a video about how I make stories and what you kind of need the threshold of proof that you need to actually be able to do a story, but it wasn't enough at that point. So now the floodgates are open. People were open to sharing their experiences. People were going on social media talking about their experiences. At the time for this Bloomberg story that I published, I spoke to about 50 current and former employees. And the reality, of course, was nuanced. I mean, for starters, Blizzard was a massive organization with thousands of employees and dozens of divisions, and your experiences there would be drastically different depending on where you worked and who you worked with. The Overwatch team had a different culture than the Diablo team, and nothing was quite like the BattleNet team. I'll get to that. And of course, Blizzard in the 1990s was very different than Blizzard in modern times. If you want to read about the old days, a lot of that is in plain nice.
It was mostly chuds.
For now, let's focus on the modern times. Some women said, hey, I had very positive experiences at Blizzard. Others said they were harassed frequently and felt discriminated against. Many women told me that working at Blizzard was kind of a paradox for them. This was a very common theme. This is a place where they had some of the best times of their lives, met some of their closest friends, people who they got married to or were in their wedding parties, who they're lifelong friends. Yet it was also a place that felt like it didn't treat men and women equally. And working at Blizzard meant kind of trying to wrap...
Shut up, Griffin. I have my GED pinned on my refrigerator with a magnet. I worked super hard cheating on tests. I deserve to be proud. Bruh, do you even have to, like, pass a test to get a GED? With no child left behind, I'm pretty sure you just get it, right?
Your head around that paradox where it's kind of some of the best times of your life and some of the worst times in your life. Often for stories like this, the people involved want to stay anonymous, and many of them did, but actually some were willing to speak on the record about their experiences and are quoted by name in my reporting. So I can give you specific names and accounts from these women. There was Cher Scarlett, who told me for a Bloomberg story that she was groped at holiday parties. There's Nikki Broderick, who told me that a bunch of things, but one anecdote that she told me is that a person she worked with looked at her and said, quote, her ass looks great in those shorts. And as a result of that, she never wore shorts into
Oh, the humanity.
the office again. She told me about various times where she complained about things to HR and nothing was ever done about it. I spoke to Connie Griffith, who told me that in executive meetings when she was an executive...
That poor woman, dude. Someone said your ass looks great in those shorts.
Assistant at the time, she would hear some of the top men at the company complaining about hiring women, saying, if we hire these women, we gotta
These women are just so mistreated, bro. We need to fire all these men.
Careful around them. Broderick and many of the other women who worked for Blizzard told me they compared their salaries to male colleagues and found that they were paid less even when they had the same or even more experiences. In fact, Broderick's husband actually wound up like leapfrogging her at the company. They both worked for Blizzard and wound up making more over his time there, despite the fact that she had more experience at Blizzard than he did. 6 different women for the Bloomberg story.
Maybe he was better at his job. Time spent at a job does not equal quality of work.
And even more later on, told me about incidents where they were harassed by men. They went to HR, reported those incidents, and HR did nothing. Even there's a little bit of nuance, because sometimes HR might actually take disciplinary actions against men, but not tell the people who reported it. That itself is kind of a problem, but there are ethical and legal complications there. Regardless, those women came away feeling like nothing had been done. They still had to see some of those same men every day. Sometimes it was their bosses, sometimes it was people who were above them. It contributed to this feeling overall among women, and this is a common theme that I've heard, that their issues were not being addressed. And then there was BattleNet.
Because when women don't get what they want when they want it, it's all of a sudden a huge fucking problem, and men are to blame. Like, why are we still doing this shit, bro? Have we not seen enough of these lying fucking hoes to realize that most of these bitches just make shit up because they didn't get their way?
don't know if you're not familiar, Battle.net is the service that Blizzard uses to sell and distribute their games online. And there was a big Battle.net department that incorporated. It was kind of like the tech department, IT department. It had all these reorgs, changing names all the time. But under a guy named Ben Kilgore, who was the chief technology officer, it felt like a frat house. People would take shots during meetings and vomit in trash cans. I
Based.
swear to God, I heard all sorts of crazy stories about these hazing rituals that people had to go through. Alcohol was such a big problem.
That's awesome, bro. And that's why their games kicked ass. You know, this is why we used to have good games. Is because it was a bunch of chuddy buddies hanging out, making fucking cool-ass games, partying, treating work like a fucking, you know, fun time with the bros rather than serious fucking business. And everything just seemed to work out. Now it's super corporate. You can't even look at a woman the wrong way. You can't make an offhanded joke. You can't promote your friends. You know, it's ruined. The entire culture of Western game development has been ruined by women.
Blizzard and overall, but especially in the Battle.net department, that the company actually temporarily banned drinking at holiday parties at one point, and then later said it was instituting a 2-drink minimum at these parties because people would just kept getting drunk and causing problems and driving drunk, and alcohol was just everywhere. It was a real
Wait,
problem.
they instituted a 2-drink minimum? I think you mean maximum.
Ben Kilgore, who ran the tech department, in fact, he was the chief technology officer. In fact, he was being lined up as the successor to Mike Morhaime, the CEO of the company. He was going to be the next CEO of the company, was then fired in 2018 after an investigation into his behavior and allegations surrounding him sleeping with his subordinates. He was actually fired for lying to the investigators, according to people who know what happened or familiar with the investigation. The lawsuit, I think, it actually missed a lot of important parts of Blizzard's culture that I've explored in my reporting, like the lack of boundaries between professional and personal lives at Blizzard. One, call it a quirk of Blizzard, was that many of the executives there were either dating or married to lower-level employees, which led to a lot of uncomfortable
Based.
situations.
Dude, if you can't bone your secretary, what's the fucking point of hiring her?
From the CEO and multiple people in the C-suite on down. I mean, for example, imagine if you have an issue with someone and turns out they're married to the person who runs Blizzard. What do you do about that? Or like one of the top executives at Blizzard. What do you do about that? Another quirk, and I mentioned this in the book, is that several Blizzard employees were open swingers and would have sex parties that they would invite colleagues to. This stuff, I mean, a lot of these people, it was consensual. It was not something that was people. I didn't hear any stories about people feeling like they were forced to do any of this against their will. But still, it contributed to this environment where, again, it just felt like there was no boundary between personal and professional lives. By the way, Blizzard is based in Irvine, California, and a lot of people moved to Irvine for this job to work at Blizzard, and so their professional and personal lives wound up intertwined because all of their friends and the people they made and the people they met and hung out with worked for Blizzard. So just kind of quirks of
And
the
fucked.
culture that I think contributed to a lot of the problems that women felt like they had to deal with. And then there's the Cosby Suite, which has become a lasting sign of Blizzard's debauchery. This idea of this hotel suite.
The Cosby Suite had nothing to do with Bill Cosby drugging women. It had to do with the fact that the Cosby Suite looked like the sweaters he used to wear. That's such a fucking, like, fake ass point.
That was dedicated to alleged rapist Bill Cosby. It all started in the California lawsuit, which said, I'm going to quote, Afrasiabi was so known to engage in harassment of females that his suite was nicknamed the Crosby Suite after alleged rapist Bill Crosby. Quick side note, the fact that they call it Bill Crosby, I think just kind of shows you how sloppy the lawsuit was in general, but still, let's get into this. By Afrasiabi, they are referring to a guy named Alex Afrasiabi, who was a company veteran. He was the top director on World of Warcraft for a while, and he was also infamous.
Basically, what they would do is they had this room that was, like, decorated like a Bill Cosby sweater, basically, and they would all wear Bill Cosby sweaters like he would wear on the Cosby Show, and they would have a party. It's like wearing a fucking ugly sweater at Christmas time. That's all this shit was in reference to, and they tried to frame it like it was actually a place where they would drag women, drug them, and rape them while they were unconscious. Like, it's the biggest fucking bullshit story ever.
At Blizzard as someone who was accused of wrongdoing by multiple women, but still managed to stick around. For Play Nice, about nearly a dozen people who were interviewed for the book told me that they had either experienced, seen, or heard about sexual harassment conducted by Afrasiabi. But let's talk about the Cosby Suite, or the Crosby Suite. I'm going to tell you a story from Michelle Morrow, who is an actress and writer who worked with Blizzard, who was connected with Blizzard, would often do hosting stuff for BlizzCon and interviews on camera, that sort of thing. And this story is published in Play Nice. It's something that I reported out over the few years leading up to the book's publication. So, it's BlizzCon in the fall of 2013, and Michelle Morrow is out to dinner with Dave Kosak, who's a designer on World of Warcraft, and his wife, Crystal Kosak. Alex Afrasiabi drunkenly stumbles over, and according to Michelle Morrow, he starts hitting on her. Now, just to give you a little insight into the reporting process, when I hear a story like this, I will always try to talk to everyone was there. So Afrasiabi declined to comment, but Dave Kosak confirmed all of the details that Morrow shared and said, backed all this up, corroborated this stuff. So Morrow tells me, I'm going to quote from Michelle Morrow, he told me if I married him, referring to Afrasiabi, he told me if I married him, I'd have the keys to Blizzard, whatever the fuck that means. So this is going on for a little bit. Eventually, Dave Kosak takes Afrasiabi, guides him away from the table. Kind of a tough thing to do because Afrasiabi is Kosak's Kozac's boss at the time. The next night, still BlizzCon, they're all going to a party at Afrasiabi's hotel room, which everybody called the Cosby Suite. This was 2013. This was happening, according to quite a few people I've talked to who were involved with this, because of an inside joke that had started a few years back when the carpet in one of their previous hotel rooms at another hotel looked like Bill Cosby's sweater. And so they made it into a joke. They would bring pictures of Bill Cosby and they turned it into a whole thing about the Cosby Suite. There must always be a Cosby Suite, they would say. And on this group chat, Kosak writes that he's, quote, gathering the hot chicks for the cause. This is a group chat with him, Afrasiabi, and a few other Warcraft designers. Now, when Kosak says he's gathering the hot chicks, he's referring to Michelle Morrow and his wife in kind of a joking way. And Morrow confirmed this as well. So Morrow tells me, we'll get to the group chat in a sec, but so remember, we're at BlizzCon, they're all going up to the hotel room, they're all going up to the Cosby Suite, right? Morrow tells me they get to the Cosby Suite that night. She again has to fend off unwanted advances from Afrasiabi, but the night is otherwise uneventful. It's just kind of another BlizzCon party. So a year later, October 2014, a stand-up comedian named Hannibal Buress does a routine where he makes some jokes about Bill Cosby that resurface old rape accusations and wind up setting off this firestorm of new allegations and criminal proceedings. Dave Kosak tells me that at the time he joked to his wife, I guess we won't be calling it the Cosby Suite anymore. But then in 2021, the lawsuit hits, and the gaming website Kotaku shares a photo of a bunch of Blizzard employees, including Dave Kosak, gathered in front of this framed picture of Bill Cosby in the suite. This picture, at the time in 2013, before these allegations were widely resurfaced and before a lot of people knew about them, seemed harmless. It seemed harmless in 2013. But now in 2021, after all of the trials and allegations and accusations, totally horrifying. By the way, in case you're wondering, I worked at Kotaku, but I left in 2020. This all happened a year later. This article was published a year after I left Kotaku. The article also publishes a screenshot of the group text, and the way they're able to get a screenshot of the group text, and also this photo, is that this was all published on Facebook. I believe it was on Alex Afrasiabi's Facebook at the time. So this was not something that was like some big hidden secret or leaked or anything. This is something they had published on Facebook because, again, at the time, it was not something that you would see a bunch of pictures, like you would not see a group of people in front of a framed photo of Bill Cosby and think anything was awry, because it wasn't until a year after all this happened that the idea of Bill Cosby being an alleged sex offender became ingrained in everybody's heads. So the article publishes a screenshot of the group text. The article doesn't really mention that the Bill Cosby allegations only resurfaced a year before the photos were taken. And it also doesn't mention that the group text referred to Dave Kosak's wife and Michelle Morrow. And so I spoke to Michelle Morrow about this. Michelle Morrow was really pissed that Kotaku had published this. She felt like it was totally taken out of context, even though it was referring to her. And she felt like it was not right. Here's a quote from her in the book. Quote, "It was just surreal. Everyone was being unknowingly offended for me as the subject of this text when Dave Kosak is the one who protected me and did exactly what any man should do when their boss is being a creep." After the Kotaku article hit, Dave Kosak, who had left Blizzard and was now working as a creative director at Deviation Games, was fired. I also spoke to a designer named Paul Cazares, who was also in the photo. He was working at ZeniMax Online Studios, and he was fired from his job there shortly after the Kotaku article went live. He told me, actually, that he felt like this photo has disrupted his career, despite the fact that he has not been accused of any wrongdoing. All he did was appear in a photo with a framed picture of Bill Cosby a year before allegations of Bill Cosby's rape were widely resurfaced and set off a firestorm in the press and in United States culture. And let me quote Michelle Morrow again. She said, I can't speak for everyone else's experiences, but when I was in that room, there was nothing nefarious except for Alex. Other women and men that I've talked to who were at this Cosby Suite party in 2013 said the exact same thing. Alex Afrasiabi being a drunk kind of creep in their view, nothing else going awry. That's not to say there weren't other issues at BlizzCon, because BlizzCon, I think, was known as a place where a lot of Blizzard employees would get drunk and sometimes there would be wrongdoing and bad behavior, but in this particular case, it was just him, according to Michelle Morrow and other people. So here's the thing about this story. It also, despite the fact that it became this wrong, incorrect symbol of Blizzard's debauchery that everybody got wrong, Kotaku and then all of the other all the other websites that kind of followed it, worth noting, we at Bloomberg at the time pointed out that it was referring to the sweater and that it was not kind of a suite dedicated to a rapist, but besides the fact, the story actually did capture a real problem at Blizzard, which is that everybody seemed to know about the behavior displayed by Alex Afrasiabi, but nobody did anything about it. And it wasn't until the spring of 2020, 7 years after that, that Afrasiabi was fired from Blizzard for what a spokesperson later called, quote, misconduct in his treatment of other employees. So he was eventually fired, took a very long.
This whole story was a big fat nothing, bro. It's just more women trying to climb the corporate ladder. Shocker.
Long time. So what do we make of all this? I want to reiterate, many things are true at once. And I think one of the biggest problems behind this kind of world of Twitter misinformation is how everything just gets reduced to these sound bites and people just don't seem to have room in their heads for nuance. Many things are true at once. One is that the California lawsuit—
Yeah, Jason, and you're part of the problem of that. You leftist freak.
—was misleading and full of inaccuracies. Another is that that lawsuit was settled for $55 million, and the language of the settlement said that
that's rich coming from him.
No court or independent investigation had substantiated the allegations. But a third thing that's true is that many, many women have spoken out about having negative experiences at Blizzard with harassment and discrimination and misconduct. And they've spoken to me, they've spoken to other reporters, there were other stories that hit after that lawsuit, they've spoken up on social media, they've talked to friends, they've posted in group chats, they've written on game development forums, they have talked about this extensively. The thing that people don't seem to understand a lot of the times, especially in the gaming world, is that life is not Phoenix Wright. There's no binaries. There are no contradiction. That can't be right. Stories about sexual harassment, especially a lot of stories, but especially stories about sexual harassment, are always going to be messy, complicated, and nuanced. And I think in this case, it's clear, and I've talked to enough people to substantiate this, that there were very real problems at Blizzard. Even Mike Morhaime, the founder of the company, co-founder of the company, and CEO for many years, apologized for what had happened at Blizzard. After the lawsuit hit, he spent days on video calls talking to his former employees. There were a lot of people who accused him of knowing about some of the problematic people at the company, many of whom I haven't mentioned here, but Alex Afrasiabi is just one of many people across Blizzard who have been accused of wrongdoing, some of whom were fired after the lawsuit hit. And after this all went down, he actually wrote a long statement and he said, look, to the Blizzard women who experienced any of these things, I am extremely sorry that I failed you. All right, I'll see you all next time.
Wow, that was so interesting, man. Super, and I mean, that's must go hard as fuck if you're retarded. He's Nick Fuentes maxing. Alright, we'll go and watch this one since it's short. Wait, I think that was the right one, right? Love Sparkling Twilight. Okay, yeah. Funny, because being bald is supposed to be a sign of high testosterone, but that guy has nothing but pure concentrated estrogen flowing through those veins. Yeah, dude, it's it's actually pretty brutal. You know, you would think he would have like luscious locks at that point, but yeah.
I'm here, Twy. I'm not late, am I?
Oh, Brandon. No, not at all. I just finished setting up the telescope. Please, come sit down.
Oh, good. I was worried I'd miss out on seeing the equestrian lights, and most
Jesus Christ, bro.
importantly, you.
Oh, no. That's not due for another 7 minutes and 27 seconds. I took the liberty of calculating the precise time the light should appear in the sky.
What the fuck
I
is
just hope the
this? What the fuck do you think it is, PK?
scenery is as mesmerizing as Kate had said it was. She actually told me about it when I was a filly.
I'm sure it'll be mesmerizing.
Do you think he jerks off to this picture? I mean, who are we kidding? Of course he does.
Yeah, but one thing is for certain. No lights will be as mesmerizing as you, Twilight. You're the most beautiful light in the night sky.
Aw, you sure know how to make a mare smile, don't you?
Well, I mean, I try, for you. Sure is a beautiful night out, huh,
What?
Twilight?
Indeed. Did you know that constellations are from an old Pony
What the fuck
term
happened?
that means set with stars?
She's so pretty when she talks all Twilighty.
And then, of course, is the Canis Minor, my most favorite of all the constellations. Bran? You there?
Huh?
The
Oh,
minor.
yeah, sorry.
Whoa.
I kinda spaced out a bit. You just look so pretty when you talk.
All right, Romeo. Actually, now that I think of it, Brandon, there's something I wanted to ask you for a while now.
Sure, what's up?
Well, say a certain mare, whom you've known for years, decided to tell you straight away that she might potentially have feelings for you and say that they're in love with you. How would you respond?
Well, I guess I would tell her that I appreciate it, and depending on the mare, I'd probably return the affection. And I'd probably tell her that she's the most beautiful mare I've ever seen, and that I would be lucky
Holy fuck, dude.
to have such an amazing girl in my life. What makes you ask?
Well, Brandon, the truth is, I love you.
Like, he paid a woman to read this shit. Like, this is, I don't know, bro. Just go pay a hooker. Paying a hooker, like, is a million times more respectable than whatever the fuck this is.
I must have confessed to him too quickly. What if he says no? What if he doesn't feel the same way? What if I'm not good enough for him?
Wait, hold on. What? I don't get it. You love me? But why? I mean, what could a guy like me have possibly done to earn your affection?
Because you're kind and honest, and I love you in your own unique way. I especially admire the way you think I'm beautiful and smart at the same time, and the fact that you understand me.
Wow. Just wow. Well, I guess I might as well say it then.
You don't have to say anything. I know I'm not the one for you at all. It's clear you deserve better.
What? No, that's not it at all. The truth is, Twilight, I love you too.
Really?
Yes, really. I've
Oh
wanted
my
to tell you
God,
for a long
really?
time. You're beautiful, kind, and you're always willing to do anything
Jesus
for your friends.
Christ,
You
bro.
really are worthy of the title of the Princess of Friendship. And there's no rule that says the Princess of Friendship can't fall in love.
Oh, Brendan, I'm really glad you told me all this. And I suppose you're right about that. I guess friendship isn't this princess's only strong suit.
Hey, are you cold?
A little bit.
Here.
Script written by Gatling Gun 101. Bro, he needed multiple people to write the script.
I brought a blanket. Why don't
Holy fuck, man.
we snuggle up together underneath it?
I like that, Brendan. I like that very much.
Good, because I wasn't going to take no for an answer.
Oh, the equestrian lights look so beautiful tonight.
Yeah, they sure are. They couldn't compare to the mare I'm with right now. Spoiler alert, it's you.
Aw, Brony, such a flatterer you are. I love you, more than any books in my collection.
Even the most rare collectible ones?
All right now, let's take a step back there.
Well, I love you too. Let's just enjoy this night together.
Sounds fantastic, but first, you have something on your face.
What? I do? Where? I don't feel anything. Wow, that was amazing.
Shh, don't say another word. Just hold it in your
Holy
arms.
fuck,
Sounds perfect.
dude.
I'll do just that.
Lobotomies.
Good night, my sweet princess.
Good night, my charming prince, Brandon.
It's about time those two got together. Sweet dreams, lovebirds. Oh, they'll be fine till morning.
Why is she moaning? Because they're clopping, dude.
They've got each other.
He shoved his entire arm into her ponussy to artificially inseminate her. Just like they do on the farms. Fuck is alright, there we go. Wowie zowie, man. That sure was amazing. Oh, hold on, the chat just crashed. Fuck. Let's see, duplicate. Let's put it on live. Alright. Ugh. That sure was exciting, man. When's the live? Yeah, I don't know if I want him around horses.
This video is brought to you by Manscaped and their all-new...
Ironic.
I had one question in my head the whole time I was playing Beast of Reincarnation. All the money that Game Freak makes off Pokemon, where does it go? Pokemon is the single most profitable IP in the history of the human species. Literally, nothing makes more money than Pokemon, so where does it all go? We know it's not going into the Pokemon games, we can tell that just by looking at them, and now having played Beast of
To the shareholders.
Reincarnation, it's pretty clear that money wasn't flowing into this either, because this unfortunately is a big disappointment. Instead, as someone who's really interested in Beast of Reincarnation before its release,
I actually like this game. I think it's pretty fun. Put it on easy and enjoy it.
I've been tracking it since its initial reveal. I'm a bit of a sucker for Nier Slop, Nier Automata, Stellar Blade, anime waifus kicking the shit out of stuff. I'm an easy mark for it. I'm also into this aesthetic and setting. What if the post-apocalypse, but instead of barren industrial wasteland, nature had reclaimed the world? I love that idea. It's cool. It's interesting.
Nier Automata?
But Beast of Reincarnation doesn't come anywhere near realizing the potential of that vision. The flashy trailers are the best possible glimpse of this game. The reality is very different. The most important thing to understand about Beast of Reincarnation is that it actually wouldn't be so bad if Game Freak had just resigned themselves to the 10 hours of content they had, rather than trying to stretch it out over 20 hours. There's a decent enough game here, but it's stretched out and doled out in the slowest, most painful, piecemeal way imaginable, relying on empty levels and repetitive enemy encounters to pad out the runtime. Bosses
I will say that. That's a fair critique. It does get a little padded. So, yeah, it is pretty repetitive at times.
are the perfect example. You play a game like this and you expect to run into new bosses at the end of each level, but what surprises you to learn that the entire middle stretch of the game, a good 4 to 5 hours, is just spent clearing new areas only to arrive at bosses that you've already killed. Just high-level versions of them with exactly the same movesets, the same animations, the same everything. You have to do it all over again. Progression's another one. You basically max out your character by around about the halfway point of the game, like how far you can level away.
I played the wrong video. Oh well, it's done now.
Weapon, the armor you found, the mod slots for that armor, most of your core abilities. After that, you spend the rest of the game ignoring the item economy and progression systems because there's not really much point engaging with them. The situation with environments is similarly bleak. Most of the
Every time I'm having a bad day, I just think of Ray crying to Avril Lavigne. Dude, that shit was brutal. He was tearing up over some fucking chick pop song.
environments look the same. Or at least the first 3/4 of the game, they all look far too similar. There is a little diversity towards the back quarter, but you're just
Do
swapping
you think he cries at that fucking Skater Boy song? Dude. Bro, I guarantee you he does. He's like ugly crying in his car, like he wasn't good enough for her. Bro. Brutal.
out an overgrown forest for a vacant desert. So bosses
I
progression
dude, I guarantee you those drives are pretty fucking crazy if you just happen to pull up next to him and look through the window.
level design, all of it is victim to this game's runtime, which forces both repetition and half-baked offerings. Doled out over a really tight 10 hours, this might have come together to form a decent enough video game. Doled out like this, though, it's painful. And that's setting aside the issues with the fundamentals of these things. There are bosses, but their movesets are incredibly simple, limited, and repetitive. Once you nail their 2 to 3 moves, they're done, and their phase 2 evolutions offer precious little variation. The progression tree does give you new combat abilities, but because the suite of enemies is so limited, there's no real incentive to use those new abilities. They don't help you solve new problems thrown up by the combat puzzle, because the combat puzzle never evolves. You've basically seen it all within the first hour or two. The level design is linear yet honeycombed, forcing you to jump into all of these empty pockets of space to collect things, while just as often erecting invisible walls because Game Freak weren't thorough enough in their level design. But the weirdest part of this package has got to be the visuals. It's just so ugly and blurry. I don't know how you get a game that looks like this in 2026, especially when it's made by a studio that has
I don't think it looks that ugly, to be honest.
the infinite money glitch enabled. This whole thing just feels super sloppy. It really needed another year of development time to really tighten the screws on all of it, to get combat feeling right, get traversal feeling right, iron out the level design, replace the reuse
The traversal feels good.
content with new stuff, punch up the storytelling so it isn't so plotting and laborious. Another year and maybe it would have had a shot, but it didn't get that, and as a result, it's just a really disappointing, shallow, repetitive experience that I can't recommend now or in the future, because I don't think patches are the cure for what ails this game. It's deeply unfinished and, more terminally, deeply uninteresting.
He certainly seems happy to be by your side.
Let's start with technicals. I reviewed this on a high-end PC and performance there is good enough. That's certainly not the case on lower-end machines though. Look at the Steam reviews and you'll see loads of performance complaints there. It reportedly runs
Yeah, I don't fucking care about complaints on lower-end machines, bro. Like, people on lower-end machines are playing CSGO and League of Legends. Like, I'm so sick of, like, that being the review market on Steam. It's like, dude, it runs like crap on my well, that's because your computer's crap. You know, your 2060 is chugging and barely grasping for a fucking breath. Like, let that shit go and upgrade your computer, bro. You know, it's no longer 2018. It's time to move on.
okay on PS5, but around launch on Xbox, it was essentially unplayable, with frame rates dropping down into single digits. That's apparently been fixed with a recent patch, but it's pretty ridiculous that the game shipped in that state on Xbox and that reviewers were playing through it. And
It's not ridiculous because nobody cares about Xbox, bro.
that state, it's a clear example of how thrown together all of this feels. On visuals, I will say that what you might think
Do you really think a Japanese dev cared about Xbox? Come on.
about the visuals is really going to change depending on which exact frame you are looking at and the circumstances of that frame. I can show you any frame from like God of War, and most of them look pretty good no matter what. There's consistency to the art design and the image quality, not so with Beast of Reincarnation. The art design is a very strange patchwork. Industrial wasteland and factories and automatons smashed together with natural landscapes and rocky formations, and overlaid on top of all of that is this massive
Actually, they're not automatons.
overgrown shrubbery. It's a messy concoction that could have come together, but just doesn't here. When the game leans into a single aesthetic, it kind of works. A properly designed forest area can look quite nice, and some of the internal industrial spaces can look really good. It's when you get to the outdoor areas where it tries to mix all three of these aesthetics, that's when things really start to break down and the game just looks
It looks fine.
bad. These visual styles haven't been cohesively woven together. All of that
How does this look bad? Again, I am so sick of graphics whores. I am so fucking sick of graphics whores, bro. This looks fine. Could it be a little more clear without the Unreal Engine fog? Yes. But dude, why does everything need to be fucking photorealism? Like, this is fine for a video game.
it's made significantly worse by this blur. I wish I knew the technical term for it. In Halo Campaign Evolved, the blur was largely caused
Unreal Engine, that's the cause.
by film grain and chromatic aberration. This here is way, way worse, and it's something else, something way more profound. This almost feels like the resolution scale of the distant areas is much lower than the
It's
foreground.
called Unreal Engine, and it sucks.
And even that's not true, because sometimes everything looks blurry, foreground and background. I look at some scenes and I think, what's going on here? How has this happened? Why does it look this gross? It takes me out of these scenes so often because I'm not thinking about the natural beauty of these landscapes. I'm just looking at this weird, muddy image, wondering to myself, what's gone wrong in the computer to make it look like this? It's especially bad with lighting. The lighting engine is completely cooked. Lighting is either on or off. A good example is this cave where light shafts are meant to be coming through. You can see how much they blast out here with no subtlety at all. Same with these god rays coming down. You can see how noisy they are and they just look awful. Very often you'll be exploring a space in the daytime because there is actually a day-night cycle here, and you simply can't see what's in front of you because of this blinding white light. It's terrible. It's rare these days to look at a modern game and genuinely have to critique its ability to generate a quality image. We touched on it a little in the Halo review, but there were some settings obstructing the image. Take those settings off and it will look better. I don't imagine there's a quick fix here. This is much more deeply baked in, and I don't think 1 or 2 or even 10 patches are going to fix what's going on here. There are other technical issues too, but the most disruptive issue I faced is the camera during combat, which is horrendous. It constantly swings around. There's no centering, no way to clearly frame the action. You're constantly surrounded by enemies, and the camera makes no effort to show you all of that action. On top of that, the camera control stick is the same stick that controls target lock on selection, and you can't change that setting in the menu, by the way. So trying to move the camera often just results in you accidentally targeting an enemy that you didn't won't target. Fundamentally, this just means that most of the time you're fighting the camera. That's particularly bad in this boss fight where a number of small enemies spawn alongside a boss with a massive hitbox. I swear to God, the only thing that makes this fight difficult is the camera. And it's a twofold problem because not only do these little robots make target locking annoying, but the lock-on also targets the head of the boss and you can't really pull it off there. So it's very easy to take big swings at the air because the lock-on hasn't been properly calibrated and the hitbox isn't right. It is incredibly frustrating to dump your cooldowns and then get massively screwed by both camera and enemy hitbox issues. I hate this boss so much. So from a technical
I just spammed range and killed it in like 30 seconds, but you know.
perspective, all of this is pretty woeful. One of the most unpolished games I've reviewed in quite some time. You can fix some of it with patches, but fixing a game's camera is a big deal, and getting rid of this blurriness is going to be a very big deal, and you're never going to change the overall art design either. Just a very incomplete, disappointing technical package that should give anyone pause, and I don't see a quick turnaround. These issues are going to be here for quite some time, I think.
Again, what is wrong with this game's graphics? Like, honestly, aside from the lighting issues and the fog, which every Unreal Engine slop title has the fucking fog, unfortunately, there is nothing inherently wrong with the graphics of this game. Like, yeah, is it fucking Death Stranding or Horizon Zero Dawn? No, but not every game has to be fucking photorealism slop.
Level design is very weird in Beast of Reincarnation. It's not an open world game, it's a level-based game where you journey between a number of semi-open world hubs. The first one you get to is quite deceptive in that it's fairly large and it gives you a fair amount of freedom to explore in different directions, and there's an incentive to do that exploration early on because the progression systems are firing on all cylinders. It feels pretty good and it seems promising. But it's a promise thoroughly broken as you get later into the game and realize that level was an anomaly because the vast majority of the other levels are not like it. They're very linear levels dressed up as semi-open world explorable spaces. Imagine...
Oh my god, linear levels! No!
really wide but linear canyons or quarries or factories that might give you a small branch left or right, but that's about it. You're being shuttled down these fairly linear spaces most of the time. You might expect the offshoot paths in games like this to offer up some variety, some puzzles, some different enemy encounters, some side quests offering unique story vignettes, etc. But none of these side paths offer anything like that. Think of a river with a small creek veering off to the side. The creek's function is the exact same as the rivers, just on a smaller scale. These offshoot areas are just little creeks. They offer the same thing the main path does, only less of it. They almost exclusively reward you with currencies and items that are only useful to you in the first half of the game, after which point they stop being useful because you've maxed out what they provide to you, so you have no incentive to even pick this stuff up. There's also a general unpleasantness to exploring these levels because of the way that the level design works and the controls work. These levels are meant to be very vertical spaces, and you've got a grapple you can use to pull up to certain places, but the grapple point only appears in very specific places, not everywhere. And yet there are also secrets hidden high up, so you're expected to kind of jump around the geometry to reach them, and most of the geometry is just empty shelving. It's genuinely hard to explain it because I've never encountered another game with the same approach to level design, but it mostly just results in you feeling like you're exploring unfinished levels, like there should be more stuff around you, more enemies, more structures, more environmental storytelling, more anything, but it's all just empty except for the one shining collectible waiting for you at the top, and most of the time when you pick it up you realize you didn't need it anyway. All this is made worse by the traversal, which is awkward. Your jump sort of fires roots out underneath you to carry you forward.
Awkward. Dude, the traversal's actually really fun in this game.
But it doesn't have enough forward
The only thing I wish it had was a dash. That's it.
momentum, and it feels very unpleasant to use. So the levels are ugly and weird and not fun, and they all kind of feel the same, and they aren't rewarding, and they feel bad to move through. But believe it or not, it actually gets worse, because as you approach the back end of the game, Game Freak completely gives up on the illusion of interesting spaces and just starts shuttling you through, literally. There's one area later in the game where you see this huge, expansive level in front of you, and you think that there must be a lot to explore here, but in reality, you're standing on top of a cable car that runs for like 3,000 meters. It's a long ride where you just stand there doing nothing, and all the geometry underneath you is pointless. It's just intended for you to look down on while you cruise over it on your gondola. Quite a few of the later levels have a similar feeling to this, actually, where you see a map and you think there must be a lot to it, and then you actually get in there and you realize that most of it is empty space that's about getting you to the next reused boss encounter as quickly as possible. Combat is the
All I can say, guys, is if you play this game on easy, like I am, it's a pretty fun action game. So, is it anything amazing? No. Is it gonna, be one of your best games of 2026? No. But it's actually a pretty fun game, I would say. I've enjoyed it. But I love my action slop, so...
centerpiece of Beast of Reincarnation. There are some good aspects, but generally speaking, your appreciation for them gets worn down by all the negatives. We've already covered the camera and how disruptive it is during combat. There are plenty of other issues too. Perhaps the biggest one is enemy variety, which is extremely limited. There are really only 3 to 4 robotic type enemies and 3 to 4 animal type enemies. To be fair, there are technically more than this, but you run into the others so infrequently that it ultimately feels like you're fighting the same 3 or 4 enemies throughout the entire game. Within those enemies, there isn't nearly enough variation in what they are and how they function and how they contribute to the battlefield. There's essentially an archer type robot.
Yeah, this is way better than modern Pokemon, for sure.
the melee sword robot, and everything really is just variations on the sword robot. One is just a fodder type enemy that goes down really easily. One is a big looking samurai dude who will definitely mess you up if you aren't paying attention. One dual wields katanas and he will really mess you up very fast. There are some other subtle variations, but ultimately it feels like you're fighting the same type of enemy over and over. You might hope some identity would come through in the bestial enemies, but it doesn't. They also just melee you, their attack patterns are quite similar to one another, and they're very telegraphed. You see all of these enemies very early on, so once you learn their attack patterns within the first hour or two, you're essentially just rinsing and repeating that throughout the rest of your playthrough. As repetitive as the enemies are, the bosses are much worse. They're almost all bigger variations of the smaller bestial enemies who are fighting earlier. They do have expanded movesets though, they're not one-to-one. You're really not going to struggle to get these bosses down. You can learn them within the first 1 to 2 wipes, then rinse and repeat. They do have a phase 2, which is meant to be them going Super Saiyan and really changing things up, but it's basically the same. Most of their attacks are repeated, so it feels like you're doing the same fight twice. But you're not just doing it twice. You're probably doing it 4, maybe even 6 times depending on the enemy, because towards the midpoint of the game, it completely gives up on introducing new boss types and literally drags and drops the ones you fought before. I couldn't believe it the first time this happened. I cleared an entire level expecting to find a new boss, and when I got there, I saw one I'd already killed. I was like, okay, well, he's probably gonna have some new capabilities, new moves, new animations, etc. No, he was exactly the same, right down to the phase 2 transformation animation, and I had to kill him again. Then there were 3 levels after this where I had to do exactly the same thing, killing bosses I'd already killed. Then there was another level after that where I had to kill the same identical boss twice in a row. And that's on top of one recurring enemy who keeps turning up with a beast fighting alongside him. You fight him like 3 times, and it's the same fight every single time. Oh, and this game is also the master of that annoying thing where you win a battle but lose a cutscene. It happens so much here. I wanted to throw the controller at the screen at one point. You beat this guy in this really long, drawn-out fight. You're victorious. Then the cutscene rolls, and all of a sudden, you're basically dead, and the guy runs away. Incredibly lazy storytelling. So boss design is not good. It's too simplistic, and the copy and pasting of previously defeated bosses is egregious, especially when they don't gain new capabilities the next time you fight them. It's very obvious padding. You can absolutely tell the Game Freak made X amount of content and then had a mandate from on high to get the runtime up. And this was the proposal to do it. Build really generic feeling empty levels with reused enemies and reused boss encounters at the end. They honestly could have just cut a quarter of this game and absolutely nothing of value would have been lost. Related to combat is another major shortfall, progression. There are functioning itemization and ability progression systems here, but it's clear these systems weren't aligned to the increased artificially inflated runtime. They were built for a game which would have been the right length, which is why you max out many of your progression metrics within the first half of the game. By around the halfway point, you can already fully upgrade your swords, get the most meaningful upgrades on your character sheet, and you've got most of the armor and mods you need. Your upgrades for your
What the fuck is wrong with getting upgrades and then being able to use them for half? Like, alright, this is something I've never understood about game design. Is you unlock everything at the very end of the game right when you don't need to use it. If anything, I applaud the design in this game that you actually unlock shit early on and then get the rest of the game to actually use it. Like, it's a novel concept, but you actually get to use the shit that you unlock and earn? Like, crazy.
dog companion similarly max out very early. I was really hoping at the halfway point that new progression systems would open up, but they didn't. This has an important knock-on impact. Combat never becomes more interesting after that point. Very early on, you've unlocked the full combat sandbox, and the weapons you get don't evolve at all. The skill tree does give you new attacks, but crucially, because the enemies don't change in the later part of the game, the new attacks give you very little utility. They're not solving any new problem because you already know how to handle all of these enemies. You've been doing it the whole game, and there are no new enemies giving you new challenges, so all of these new attacks are ultimately just pointless. Oh, and one little nitpick, when you get new armor, it actually doesn't show up on your character. You'll see the icon in your inventory and it looks different. Emma will wear exactly the same outfit throughout the entire game's duration.
Yeah,
no change.
because it goes on underneath.
I imagine this was to reduce the need to, change cutscene appearances or something. I don't know, but it feels incredibly disappointing, especially for a game like this where, an evolving wardrobe is really the least you can hope for. On the fundamentals of combat, the parry feels really nice and it's very
we need bikini armor, bro.
satisfying when it lands. After that, the rest of the package is pretty sloppy. You're really just spamming your one attack button most of the time and chaining it with your most efficient melee ability on the X button. The aerial stuff that you're seeing here kind of happens on its own, and when you do try any more ambitious aerial stuff, it often is more trouble than it's worth because enemies track you in the air really effectively, and their overhead attacks can smack you while you're up there because you can't block or parry in the air. It's actually much safer to stay on the ground all of the time, especially against bosses. The combat really doesn't feel great in this game. There are moments when a nice series of parries land, and the animation flashiness is genuinely good. You might look at it and think, hey, this looks pretty cool, and you'd be right. It does look pretty cool. But playing it is a very different story. It's far too easy, far too repetitive. The enemy variety is too limited. The bosses are too recycled, and
far too easy. I can't jerk off to the difficulty. It sucks.
overall, it's just not a worthwhile experience for people who enjoy this genre. Sort of people that enjoy character action games or Nier Automata or Stellar Blade, I think they're going to find themselves really disappointed with this one.
Wait, this is harder than fucking Nier Automata. Nier Automata is like retardedly easy. Like, Nier will literally play itself if you want it to. You could basically stand there and take fucking damage in Nier and never die. What the fuck do you mean this is too easy? Like, I better have that same complaint with Nier, bro, because Nier is fucking piss easy. Like, you don't even have to try in Nier Automata. The fucking dodge basically makes you invincible. You just dodge R1 spam the entire fucking time.
I probably would have been sort of okay with a lot of this stuff if the story really hit. Look at something like Nier Automata. It's not the best action game ever made. Its visuals are pretty basic. Its enemy variety is pretty limited. That storyline, those characters, that music, that was generational, man. If you can get one thing really right in a game like this, it should be your combat. But failing that, you really got to get your story right. Unfortunately, the story here is not great, but the way it's told is truly awful. To this point, I described a game that feels like 10 hours of content stretched out over 20. The clearest example of that is the reused bosses. The second clearest example is this approach to storytelling. The main character, Emma, is this vacant girl who hasn't got a soul, and she seems to be some sort of synthetic, and the whole time she's kind of like, oh, kindness, what does kind mean? Friends, what does friend mean? The ocean, I've never heard of that. Like, this sort of shit over and over again at this point is so tropey, and it's been done better by all of the games that clearly inspire this one. All of the storytelling is in that same vein. You basically have a small group of companions around you, and one of them is a small girl who cooks for you.
Welcome to Japanese media, bro. Welcome to Japanese media. Reused tropes.
And every conversation with her feels like this.
She's strong, and her hair is long.
Wow, I wonder just how strong she is. Her hair's long. Maybe I should grow mine out too. Oh, I can write this in my diary.
See what I mean? Nothing is really said there. It's obviously intended to slowly eke out a feeling of affection and tenderness, a slow build of trust breaking down the barrier of awkwardness, drip fed over 20 hours so it becomes something, but it doesn't ever become anything other than really frustrating and boring, because the next time you click on these cutscenes, you're thinking, what's it going to be this time? And it's always some stupid nonsense about how nice it is to eat dinner with a friend or something. The storyline does go somewhere in the end, but Emma as a main character is a massive whiff. She's obviously that, Eve/2B style character meant to go through an arc that leads to her becoming more human and understanding the nature of her own humanity and free choice and so on. It does all the things you'd expect, but you've seen it before, and it doesn't really land here because Emma stays so vacant and vacuous the entire time. Even when she's having her emotional breakthroughs, she's just boring. The whole cast is boring. Truly are. But there are genuinely great moments in this
Well, Game Freak has exposed the true nature of women.
game storytelling, and had they been delivered at a steady clip, I might have been on board. Instead, I came to truly resent the fate of Black that presages yet another slow, dull, drawn-out cutscene that is clearly meant to serve as padding before the next actual interesting thing happens. So, a fairly brutal review. Is it all bad? No, it's not. Some aspects of combat can be pretty good at times. Parry feels nice. And when you string a whole bunch of them together, open up an enemy to a big attack, and it really lands with all the animations flying and shit, it's pretty good. Some parts of the levels are also nice to look at. That beginning part of the game and its level design are quite good and feel pretty solid. And the progression systems at the front end are working. You're building your character, feeling stronger, gaining new capabilities, meeting new enemies, etc. But you've really seen the best of what this game has to offer in the first hour or two, because after that, it's just repeating it over and over and over again. Repetitive level design, repetitive and drawn-out storytelling, repetitive enemy design, repetitive boss encounters, and progression systems that become redundant at the halfway point because you've already maxed them out. The game wears out its welcome, and that's if you can get past the technical issues like the blurriness and the shitty camera. I can definitely see how this might land with some people. I've already seen some of that sentiment, people accepting it for what it is, which is clearly a very imperfect game that's going for a certain vibe. On that basis, if you want to imagine that the vacant look in Emma's eyes is anything more than it is, you can certainly imprint some significance onto the story yourself. If you want to focus on the specifics of the level design that worked for you and ignore the rest, you can. And if you want to enjoy the spectacle and flashiness of the animations, you can certainly do that too. I'm not saying there's no fun to be had here. I'm just saying that on balance, there's not enough of it, and what little there is made worse by being stretched out over a 20
Play God of War Ragnarok instead.
hour period, when had it been smartly portioned and delivered inside of 10 hours, this could have worked enough to squeak by. Ultimately, this is just a real bummer. We like to make jokes about Game Freak and Pokemon, but this was their chance to redeploy their considerable resources towards something, and this just feels really rushed and, ironically enough, low budget. The kind of project that's made on a shoestring, except it's actually being made by literally the most profitable studio on the planet. I think it was totally fair to have expected a lot more from this, but in the end, it delivers very little, and what little it does deliver is recycled ad nauseum until the reserves of your patience and goodwill are thoroughly spent. I do not recommend this. I know some of you alpha dogs out there have beards bigger than Hagrid's, and if you want to keep it looking a touch tidy,
Oi, mate. No, I don't want to keep it tidy. Raymond of the two, why easy? Because I just want to have fun. I want that challenge by playing on hard. That's fine, but I don't. Mupbob, Sharp Pants with the 5. Fine, here's more shekels to read my post. What post? I'm not reading a fucking whatever it is. Manifesto type shit. So if that's what it is, I'm not fucking reading it. I don't see any post. What post am I reading? Yeah, I don't see anything written. It's just all fucking pictures. And it's on your alt. Let me see. What the fuck? Oh my god. Dude, I don't want to read all this. Can I just put it into fucking text-to-speech? I don't want to read through all that. Here, I'm going to see if I can find a free text-to-speech. I ain't trying to read all that. Here, let's see if this works. Paste. Okay. We'll have Gwyneth.
Never say Oski Woski 3 times in the mirror. Hello.
Okay. And then what am I putting on the background? Fuck. Disintegrating me, you? Oh, man. Oh, wait, that's not it. Disintegrating me, you. Emotional piano? That.
Hello, my name is Griffin. This story begins about a couple weeks ago. I was staying over at my friend PK's house. He suggested that we go explore abandoned buildings around Nijihel. This is something that we usually do together, and it's quite fun. I don't know why it's fun, it just is. Anyways, we walked around our town until we saw an abandoned Mexican mansion. We should check that one out, PK suggested. Yeah, all right, I said. Even.
Oh, they won't let me use it. Brutal. Trying to get me to pay. Hold on.
Dear team, I hope this email in the middle of a forest
For personal use. Alright, let's see if it works now. It's probably gonna fuck me.
Never say oski waski 3 times in the mirror. Hello, my name is Griffin. This story begins about a couple weeks ago. I was staying over at my friend Peek's house. He suggested that we go explore abandoned buildings around Nijihel. This is something that we usually do together, and it's quite fun. I don't know why it's fun, it just is. Anyways, we walked around our town until we saw an abandoned Mexican mansion. We should check that one out, PK suggested. Yeah, alright, I said. Even though the sight of the Brappy Meximut mansion made me a little uneasy, I thought, what's the worst that could happen? I wish I would have trusted my big Aryan gut on that. Anyways, it was pretty easy to make it in the house. There was an opening in the surrounding gate, and the door was unlocked. That was pretty easy, I said. The interior of the house made me as uneasy as the outside. It looked gloom. Yet the valuables inside the house looked pretty expensive. I don't know why the previous owners didn't take the stuff with them. I thought about stealing a few things when we left.
Bet you did.
I'm pretty sure PK had the same idea too. We eventually found an attic. I hesitated going up there until PK said, "What are you afraid of, Guck? No one's here. Snap out of it. You've been weird the whole time." "Yeah, sorry about that," I said. Upon entering the attic, I saw a single mirror, which is strange. I would have thought there'd be a ton of valuable shit. That's weird, but it reminds me. I heard that if you say oski waski and brap in the mirror 3 times, someone appears. You should try it. It's a perfect way to test it. I was hesitant. The thing he told me sounded absurd, but I might as well do it to prove it's ridiculous. Oski waski, oski waski, oski waski. A loud, smelly thunderbolt crashed in the distance. The mirror started glowing. Then I saw a brown, hideous figure emerge from the abyss of the mirror. "Keep taking those LLLLLLL. Keep taking the LLLLL. I will spam popcorn emojis. Oh, algo yeno algo puta," the figure said. Islam 1, Hezbollah 1, Hamas 1. Reply if you agree, Griffin. What is this regarded obese Puskin even saying? I thought to myself, frozen with fear. PK was confused as well. "Who are you?" PK managed to ask. "I am Oski Waski. My clitty is leaking because you are so obsessed with me, posting my face on stream Alago," the voice said. "Now I want to kill you." I was terrified. PK and I stood there still. The brappy Oski Waski glanced around the room, and eventually something caught his eye. He rushed towards it. "Ya Ilahi, is that my Janny Black Cube, Sar? I'm so sorry, Black Cube. I will pray to you now." While Oski Waski was distracted praying to his satanic Negahel towel head god, me and PK whispered a plan to each
Speaking
other.
of black cubes,
I forgot to
have
mention
something to
this,
pull up.
but me and PK are Germanic Australian Aryans. I know it sounds crazy, but me and him have a special power that comes with being Aryans. You can summon other Aryans. We decided to summon New Zealand's finest, Brenton Tarrant. Since killing Puskins is like child's play to him, We began the ritual while Oski was still distracted. We finished it, and Brenton Tarrant arose. Brenton, we need you to kill this shit-skinned Mexamut blue whale for us. We are in danger. PK said to Brenton, "Of course, young white men, I will take care of him." Brenton told us while holstering his rifle, ready to shoot. "Oh no. You lose all debates. Mexico and Griffin Janney's won. Ack, Oski said while being gunned down by our Aryan warrior Brenton. Oski's 200-kilogram body collapsed and faded away. "Thank you, Brenton. You're a lifesaver," I said.
I don't
"Yeah,
know what
thanks, B. Brenton,"
kilograms are.
PK said. "Of course, my friends. Anytime," Brenton said with a smile. "Stay out of trouble, and don't go around summoning these skin Arab pieces of shit anymore, okay?" "All right," we said. "Goodbye, Brenton. Have fun in Hyperborea with Tifa and Aerith," we said as we waved goodbye.
Alright, well, there we go. Wowie zowie, man. Yeah, I mean, that was something that existed. I don't know if it should have, but how exciting. Better stories and porn? Yeah. Here, let me pull this up real quick. I have something to share with the class. Here it is. Yeah. This shit's so fucking retarded, man. Hold on. Jake Shields doing groundbreaking research on black cube sculptures.
This is the Black Cube in Astor's place in New York City. Now, Astor was the first multi-millionaire in the United States. This was commissioned by a Jewish artist, Tony Rosenthal. Now, exactly why he commissioned it, we're not sure, or who paid for it.
He doesn't know what commissioned means. Like, hold on. Let's just go back.
Tony Rosenthal. Now, this was commissioned by a Jewish artist, Tony Rosenthal. Now, exactly why he commissioned it, we're not sure, or who paid for it.
When you commission something, you are paying. Holy fuck, dude. This is so fucking retarded. Like, this is, yeah. This is who's gonna save the West, guys.
Who paid for it is anonymous. This is supposed to be temporary, but it stayed here. It was put here in 1967, Summer Love, and that year in New York was a complete upheaval. And for people who don't know, the Black Cube is a very strange symbol. It represents Saturn, and Saturn is the god of sacrifice.
Saturn is not the god of sacrifice. Saturn is the god of time and the harvest.
Also, the Star of David also represents
the Star of David.
Saturn. If you turn this, put a line through it, it becomes the Star of David.
If you turn a cube and put a line through it, it becomes the Star of David. No! Dude, holy shit. He's like, it becomes an 8-pointed star. Not 6. Not fucking 6, bro. It becomes an 8-pointed star if you take a cube, cut it in half, and then spin one side slightly, like 45 degrees. Dude, this is like fucking just maximum midwittery on display.
Or Star of Brimfan, as many people say. So, if this has any connection, I don't know, but you'll start noticing there's black cubes all over the world, and most of them are placed there by Jewish artists.
Holy fuck, man. This shit is brutal. It's actually fucking brutal, man. Oh my god. Oh. Yeah, he he's tried to latch onto the whole JQ thing. So him and Dan Bilzerian. Demand raise slop? Well, I take kinder to demands on the back of a $10 bill.
Give me monies!
This looks like the guy from Always Sunny and which one? I don't know about the homeless one? This is what they're afraid of. Yeah, exactly. The new right, guys. The new right. It's coming. Is that tipster? Probably.
Not shaving. Discord mods don't shave. Hey Kenan, Uwu, do you think I'm handsome?
This is just straight up Norm Groid slop.
A lot of people used to say this, like, do it really make y'all smile when I smile? Like, let me try it out.
Hello, girl.
Hi,
What's your name?
my name is Brony.
Oh, goddamn.
Not shaving. Discord mods don't
How
shave.
is this funny? Like, again, euthanization for anyone who laughed. Euthanization is the only option. Alright, we gotta purge this fucking page. We're getting Brony shit now because of that fucking video. There we go. I muted my mic? No, I did not. She could see my mouse was over to the right, so. Let's see, do we have any gaming news today?